Doom is going to come in, and Nick, Dr. Doom, this was sick in my opinion. Doom makes an explosion entrance into the sewers, and the sewer people, these jewelers, immediately open fire. Because some guy comes in with a WWE entrance.
Ride or die, man.
And Doom is bulletproof, and then he like flexes on them. I was like, that's gangsta shit right there. This is the coolest that Doom has been the entire movie, despite his maniacal laughing sounding like he's in pain.
Might have been the coolest Doom we've ever seen on screen.
I wouldn't argue that. I mean, this Doom is unhinged, hates Reed Richards, and is ready to murder people.
This is for being a real jerk.
That sends him over the edge, and then he's like caught on a ledge, and then he's like,
Reed, help me. We were friends once.
Hang on, Victor.
And then Reed's like, give me your hand, Doom. And then Doom's like, you f***ing pussy. You can't even put the final blow on me. And he's like, fuck you. Hey, what's poppin', Kernels? We're ready to stick it to you, corn dogs, because we are back for a fourth time covering the Fantastic series. It's the unofficial franchise of the year. You know what it is, because you've been with us 4 times doing this. I'm Captain Pop. I am the human porch. I am the indivisible woman. I am Mr. OK. And I'm not a person nor a place, but something. I am James. I'm one of your hosts. I'm with my co-pilot, my partner in crime. You can call him my college rival, because we've just been stuck at the hip until we got into a messy experiment and a crazy accident scarred my face for life. He is Nick. He is the corn dog. He is Dr. Thoom, because he be thooming, he be zooming, and he's got the room to be here. Welcome in. How you doing?
I'm doing great, James. Thanks as always for that introduction. And I'm feeling good today. I'm feeling so good. Nothing can bring me down. Not even my greatest triumph, being unreleased to the public and spending years of my life working on something that no one will ever see. No, James, not even that could bring me down today, because we're here, we're together, and this is going to be one hell of a ride, buddy.
A super ride. And you know what? This movie could not relate, because somehow, some way, it did get out and it did get seen. And my God, it's a movie. So, Nick, we said it when we were doing the original Fantastic Fours from the 2000s. We brought up the history of ownerships and options and character rights with film studios. Fascinating stuff. And it was kind of a on-the-fly decision this year to watch this movie, the unreleased, quote-unquote, The Fantastic Four, produced by Roger Corman, which we'll get into. It was just basically a giant ploy.
Oh boy, James. Cannot wait. This is 1994's Fantastic Four, so I like to refer to it as the Fantastic 1994.
Very fitting, because yes, this is the 4th Fantastic Four movie we watched this year. We saw those 2000s ones. We saw Fantastic Four First Steps. And now we're just going to round it out with the one that was supposedly never supposed to see the light of day. So, Nick, it's a tradition around here to give some pre-pop scores. We got to just flash some numbers at each other and see what we're thinking right off a fresh watch of the 90 minutes that we endured of this movie. Nick, it looks like you're reviewing this movie first, so I'm going to need to see them popcorn points, and I'm going to need to see your first impressions and your 3 words. But we might even make it 4 words to stay on theme. Counting down pre-pop, show it to me. 4, 3, 2, 1. Nick, you gave Fantastic 1994 a 1. And that's a low bar. But let's see what your initial thoughts were. Give me your 4 words, please.
I said Dark Side of Hollywood.
That's a good one.
Got deep there for a second, James. Well, it is your turn now. Same deal. 4 seconds, counting you down. And let me see that pre-pop score. 4, 3, 2, 1. James, you say IDK, but it wasn't good. All righty. Give me your 4 words, buddy.
Really hard to follow. I texted you that after I watched it. I said that movie was hard to follow.
Yeah, another word I had during watching it was just jarring.
Yeah.
It's a jarring film, but
we can always go with 4 separate words of unclear, cloudy, sloppy, but sometimes just a small little 3 to 4 word phrase gets the point across. And that's how I felt watching this movie, which is a shame because we got to just address the elephant in the room, which is the entire reason why this movie was made. We'll get into that, but let's just go over our players here. This movie was directed by Ole Sassone. Sassone? He's Sicilian.
I'm going to say Sassone.
I don't know if you went through his IMDb. I didn't necessarily recognize a whole lot of stuff that he directed, but seems like a pretty cool guy. This movie, like we said, was produced by Roger Corman, who is the king of B movies. He has produced literally 491 movies. Nick, he's heavily involved in the Death Race series. He was there from the beginning, and even the one that the Asylum did when we were talking about Street Racer. He was on Death Race 4.
There was a Jurassic Park B movie made. Carnosaur, yeah. So that was his resume.
That was his lane. So fast and cheap is his style. So it's going to be a little bit of a hint of what's going on here. This movie's going to go ahead and star Alex Hyde-White, Rebecca Staub, Jay Underwood, and Michael Bailey Smith, along with Joseph Culp. Now, the first 4 of those names are technically friends of the show because we shouted them out when we watched the Fantastic Four First Steps. All 4 of those guys make cameos in that movie. So way to just have an easy welcome into our show, guys.
Yeah, but for different reasons. One for a good movie and one for this movie.
And we did watch this documentary about how this movie got made. We'll make references to it as we go along this podcast. But they did reveal that since this was a low-budget movie, we had a lot of familiar faces that were reading for this movie that weren't maybe necessarily super famous back then, but maybe they're famous now, or maybe they're just friends of the show. But Nick, Mark Ruffalo read for this movie. Patrick Warburton read for Ben Grimm. And Nick, friend of the show, Nick Cassavetes, a.k.a. our king from The Wraith, Packard, he read for Dr. Doom. If he got Dr. Doom, I would fucking lose it, and I would raise this movie by a couple points.
As soon as they said Nick Cassavetes, I was like, there's no way.
If he acted like Packard as Dr. Doom, that'd be absolutely nuts.
Hey, Carrie, I'll pick you up later tonight, so do yourself a favor and be here.
If you don't know what we're talking about, we watched this 80s movie with Charlie Sheen called The Wraith. It's a fantastic, so bad it's good watch, and our podcast on it was hilarious.
I think he would have won a biggest piece of shit bracket easily. Nick Cassavetes as Doom.
Okay, Nick, the budget of this movie is, we don't quite know. The numbers have been thrown around. 750,000, $1 million. I think we're just going to call it $1 million. And its box office is going to be $0 because it was unreleased, except for bootleg copies sold on eBay and Hollywood Videos.
Everybody involved with the movie continuously referenced $1 million, just under $1 million. There were people who were taking money out of their own pockets to do part of the movie. So what it actually costs to do this, I think $1 million's a good. Either way, it's not a lot. I'll tell you that much. It's not a lot.
Well, I'll have to see if I can even pull up clips from this movie because I usually get them from YouTube. I watched this movie on the Daily Motion website. I don't know about you. Where did you watch it?
I found it on Internet Archive.
It's where we watched Bullet, I think.
Yeah. So wherever you watch this movie, it's going to be from one of those like sketchy sources where you think to yourself, this isn't, my computer's dirty.
And when I was watching it, the website I had kept having trouble buffering. I had to refresh it, and then the rewind button was broken. It would rewind to the second I joined the video when I first opened it up. I was like, what a mess. It's also messy because they're VHS ripped quality. So, when you take a piece of paper and make a copy of it, and then you make a copy of that copy and a copy of that copy and a copy of that copy, and the quality fades. So that's the same case here with this bootleg version that you can find on the internet. It's not going to be in its full film quality.
Technicolor.
It's not going to look good. So it's going to look like it was ripped from a VHS player and you're watching it on a computer and you just see little film grains pop up or little just imperfections. And I don't know who put out the movie, that documentary we watched. The director said that I don't know how he got a copy of it, because they basically tried to confiscate it and they never wanted it to be shown to the public. But the director brought it to a post house and said, hey, I just want a good copy of this so I can have it. And he's like, I suspect that whoever was working at that post house said, oh, here's one for you and one for me. And then it just spread like wildfire.
That sounds about right. It sounds like after the movie was finished and the studio decided this isn't seeing the light of day, a lot of the people involved were sneaking back in, trying to figure out what was going on. And yeah, probably got a copy or two, or like you said, took it to the post house to who knows?
Who knows? So we'll see if I can even find any clips to reference in this video podcast. If you're interested in seeing that, we do have full YouTube episodes available of our podcast. Please make sure to follow us on Instagram and YouTube at Just Play a Podcast. We are also on X, formerly known as Twitter, at Just Play a Pod. Let's address that elephant in the room I was talking about. We're going to state the obvious. This movie was unreleased. It was essentially a ploy to have character rights be reserved for a certain production company. Here we go. I'm going to be referencing some articles, maybe the documentary, but essentially the history of this, the Fantastic Four in 1994, it was a movie that was never supposed to be a movie. This is from The Fantastic Foe by Robert Ito of the Los Angeles Magazine from 2005. This article actually got referenced in that documentary a lot. I ended up reading that article as well. A lot of good information is in that article and basically spells it out. I will say, however, this article also says that if you ask 10 different people, you're going to get 10 different answers of what actually went down. If you ask Stan Lee, if you ask Roger Corman, if you ask the production company that made this movie, the actors, they're all going to give you a different story. But this is what the most popular, this is how it went down story goes. Okay, so in an interview with Stan Lee, he says that movie was never supposed to be shown to anybody. Now, again, this is from 2005. He's kind of comfortable talking about how this movie was essentially like, that was not a real movie and it wasn't supposed to be seen by anybody. He says this fellow had the rights to do the Fantastic Four movie for years. And finally, the option was due to lapse. If he hadn't begun principal photography by December of 1992, he would lose that option. And he still wanted to make that movie. So he figured that he would bat out a fast movie for $1.98 budget just so that he can keep that option. And when he says option, he's referring to optioning the characters of the Fantastic Four. The tragic thing is that the people involved with the film were not aware that the movie was never supposed to be shown to anybody.
Yeah, I think we covered this in maybe Daredevil, maybe Blade, but we talked about, right, the Marvel rights and how they were going through bankruptcy and they needed to sell off some of their properties. And part of the deal was that they had to continuously make movies. So that's why we have all the Spider-Man reboots, right? So that these properties can remain under Sony's possession. So it makes sense. I'm guessing Stan Lee was pretty upset because he went through financial troubles and had to give away the rights to his babies. And then this happened. So
it happened and we can't ignore it. So Nick, This fellow that Stan Lee is referring to, aka the man with the option for the characters of the Fantastic Four, was German producer Bernd Eichinger of Constantine Film. They're known for the Neverending Story and the Resident Evil franchise. In 1983, the German producer Bernd Eichinger met with Stan Lee and inquired to option, not purchase, the Fantastic Four film rights. During our podcast of Fantastic Four First Steps, remember I brought up that Herbie fun fact of why he was a thing? He was introduced in the new Fantastic Four cartoon in the 1970s because the rights to the Human Torch were sold to someone else. Turns out it was actually sold to a friend of the show, Frank Price. I'm sure that name sounds familiar. He was the studio head at Columbia and then moved over to Universal, and he was a big reason why Back to the Future got made. So Frank Price actually optioned the rights in 1977. So when Eichinger initially met with Stan Lee, Human Torch was still unavailable due to the option of the late 70s to the early 80s. But in 1986, he was back on the table. So Eichinger optioned the characters of the Fantastic Four for $250,000. and he would keep the rights so long as a movie for the Fantastic Four entered production by the end of 1992. Nick, got a timetable here. Tick tock.
No problem.
The 7th year, we need to put out a movie. So for the next decade, Eischinger tried to find backing for the Fantastic Four movie. Warner Brothers, Columbia expressed interest, but Marvel superheroes were in a shaky state. It was a tough sell, kind of a not appealing investment in the 80s for superhero movies. So with his option set to run out on December 31st, 1992, and with few backers in sight, Eischinger approached Marvel about extending his contract. Eischinger says they didn't want to prolong it because they hated the deal, you know? They had realized by then they could sell Marvel property for much more. So in 1992, Eischinger enlists Roger Corman, aka the king of shoestring budget B movies, to make it for $1 million or so. He says he needs to start production by the end of the year. Eischinger said he didn't care how they did it. We just need to start. In that documentary we watched, Rebecca Staub, who played Sue Storm, she ended up wearing a lot of her own clothes in the movie. I think the 4 outfits that were actually from the costume department was the spacesuit, the hazmat suit, the wedding dress, and the Fantastic Four outfit. They shot in a condemned warehouse in Venice. They were reusing sets from previous Roger Corman films, and crew members, like you said, Nick, were paying out of pocket for their own money to get things done.
I get the excitement around it, but this is how people get sold into quote unquote startups or even pyramid schemes, right? Like, oh yeah, we're doing it. We're bootstrapping it, but it's going to be successful and it's going to be big. And this is how you're going to make your name. And I think, yeah, in the doc, they were saying that agents were just blowing up the phones of the casting directors saying, yeah, my guy wants to be in this because it seemed like, hey, the big stars won't do this for no money. So this is your guy's chance, your little guy's chance to go ahead and be the next big star. So people were showing up. They were pumped. They thought they were part of something.
They thought they were part of something big for sure. And Corman, given this project handed to him, and he still is a little bit cloudy on the agenda of what's the rush here, Eischinger. So Corman wanted to start filming as late as possible so that he would have every day possible to prepare. He suggested December 31st, the very day that the option was due to lapse. Eischinger said, no, that would be too obvious what I'm doing. Why don't we start shooting on December 26th? Corman says, I told him it's going to be pretty obvious whether it's December 26th or December 31st. So principal photography ended up starting on December 28th. Nick, your thoughts?
Yeah.
Well, don't make it the 31st. It's gonna be very obvious that I'm trying to do it.
We don't want to make it obvious, but also the idea of like
the December day after Christmas is not that obvious.
the whole month of December is obvious. I mean, you had these rights to make a movie for 7 years, and you're going to go ahead and say like, all right, we're waiting till the last day to get this started. This is like me waiting for the last week to renew my driver's license. If something bad happens, it's on me.
No truer words have been said. Nick, the tragedy, according to Stan Lee, was that nobody bothered to tell Corman or the cast and crew, who struggled mightily to bring the film in on time and on budget, that the entire production was a sham. Many remain mystified about what took place and are anxious to know why the powers that be couldn't have just told them from the start that Eischinger's option would be lost if a film wasn't made. And this was a big point in the documentary. A lot of the filmmakers, the crewmates, the actors were featured in that documentary. And essentially it was like, look, we showed up to work and we showed up to do a good job and we did the best we could with what we had. And it was just a giant slap in the face to realize that, oh, it was just to retain character rights and nobody even told us. So what are we doing?
Yeah, I wonder what the deal actually was. I'd be very curious because why couldn't you just put out like a short film at Sundance or one of those film festivals, right? Did it have to look like a real production? Did it have to be released in theaters? So did you have to make this feature film? What satisfied making a project, if that makes sense? Because why would you go through the whole sham?
Yeah, maybe it needed Marvel's not okay, but faith, as in, okay, you got a real crew, you have a real set, you have actors, you have SAG actors coming in. Okay, this is a film production. Because obviously you could probably grab like a bunch of action figures and be like, here's our Fantastic Four movie. And then Marvel would be like, yeah, no, that doesn't count.
Yeah, did it like have to hold up in court?
That's a good point. Yeah, that's a great point. They didn't get into the specifics of that. And just like doing the character rights. We don't really quite see all the behind the scenes wording and legal terms that they're using. So a lot of it is just a mystery. But Roger Corman calls the first Fantastic Four movie the strangest film production I've ever been involved with in my life. And like I said, he made over 450 movies. So now we got Avi Arad, who became the executive at Marvel in April 1993. He's a co-founder of Marvel Studios. Arad said to Eischinger, "I think what you did was great. It shows your enthusiasm for the movie and the property. And I tell you what, I understand that you have invested so and so much. And Roger has invested so and so much." Who says that? That's weird. "Let's do a deal." Because he basically didn't like the idea that a small movie was coming out and maybe ruining the franchise, you know? So he says to me that he wants to give me back the money that we spent on the movie and that we should not release it. Eischinger doesn't know what happened to the film after Arad bought it. But did Arad even watch the movie, even once? I don't think so, says Eischinger. So Avi Arad comes in at the 11th hour as the new head of Marvel Studios, purchases the film rights, and says, "Nobody's seeing this. We're burning it. Here's your money back, Eischinger." How would you feel if you were part of a film set and nobody told you it was literally for nothing and the people at the top got a check for $1 million?
Yeah, I'm trying to think of a good real life example that we or the audience can relate to. But
This is such a unique situation.
If somebody commissioned you to make a painting or make a film, any artistic endeavor, make a song for them, and you did it, and you worked for a year making this painting or song or video, and then somebody got a glimpse of it and said, "You know what? I will pay you $1 million if you destroy that right now." I mean, that would be heartbreaking as a creative. I mean, I'm not even a painter, but if someone commissioned me to make a painting and they said, "You know what? I'll just give you money if you just burn that right now."
Yeah. Heart and soul put tough into it. Big slap in the face. It even got to Stan Lee, because Stan Lee was kind of showing some resentment in that documentary because there was some footage of Stan Lee. He's on a panel. He's talking to a crowd. He's talking about the movie. And he says, "I'm not expecting much of it. Marvel, we had no control over it." And he punctuates his statement by saying, "It's going to be the last movie of its kind. And that going forward, we're going to make our own movies." And what he meant by that was, we're not going to hand off our characters and give them the okay to make these crappy movies.
The guy who created your characters, if you're one of the actors, if that got out, I know it wasn't the age of the internet. As if it was the age of the internet, this movie would have been doomed from the start. However, yeah, for him to come out and say it's not good, basically telling everyone in the crowd, you don't want to see it, don't ask any questions about it. It is that bad. Trust me, I'm Stan Lee. I am curious, what was the next Marvel movie made? "Quote unquote" Marvel movie.
It could have been Blade. The 80s, 90s were a little bit shaky. They referenced The Punisher, the Dolph Lundgren Punisher movie. There was an early 90s Captain America movie. And we watched and reviewed Blade in year one of our podcast. And we said that was the mark for Marvel and the signifier to say, oh, we can do this. That was the first successful Marvel movie, I believe, because the Hulk show was pretty popular, but kind of corny still. DC was kind of doing not that much better, but they were technically doing a little bit more better because Richard Donner's Superman is a well-regarded movie. Even to this day, Tim Burton's Batman, while a little corny and goofy, it did make a little bit of a splash and it's a cult classic. But yeah, Marvel was having a rough go. And I think the next Marvel project was Blade.
It was funny because they did bring up something we brought up during the Blade episode, which was Wesley Snipes being slated to be Black Panther. And I'm wondering if this movie didn't scare them off of that idea a little bit and say, no, we need to really just tighten the ship, make sure that what we're putting out there is the quality that we want it to be. Because like you were saying, like it really turned the mark. And I think the mid 90s is when visual effects actually became pretty passable, honestly.
Yeah. Yes. And I think they even said Wes Craven was going to do a Doctor Strange movie. That would have been pretty cool. That would have been cool. The Screen Rant article from 2017 references what Eishinger's moves were after he retains the rights. So we made our movie. We didn't release it because Avi Arad hated it. But Eischinger then began courting blockbuster directors to direct a big budget Fantastic Four movie before the rights expired at the turn of the century. And that's what led to the German producer forming a long-standing partnership with 20th Century Fox due to the studio's strong relationship with Marvel Studios on Bryan Singer's X-Men films. So Constantine Films and 20th Century Fox spent years developing their big-budget Fantastic Four movie thanks to an extension by Marvel in 1999, co-produced by Arad and Marvel Enterprises in 2005, starring Ioan Gruffudd, Jessica Alba, Chris Evans, Michael Chiklis, and Julian McMahon, a movie we watched and reviewed earlier this year.
Rest in peace, Julian.
Now, we don't know the exact details of Constantine's deal with Fox. The Hollywood studio does possess distribution rights for the characters, similar to Paramount Pictures once controlling distribution for Iron Man, Thor, and the Avengers via Marvel's 1999 agreement with the studio. Bear in mind, again, this is back in 2017 article when Fox was literally about to sell all their rights to Disney. So this article is basically speculating what was going to happen with the Fantastic Four because Fox owned the distribution rights, but Constantine Films still had the option to own the film rights of the characters. Because Fox had co-produced and distributed the only Fantastic Four movies ever to make it onto the big screen, they've been associated with the franchise in the eyes of the general public. But the Fantastic Four's production rights aren't theirs to sell because there's two sets of rights. There's production and distribution. Fox had distribution and Constantine Films had production rights. Contractually, Disney buying 20th Century Fox didn't grant them the film rights to the Fantastic Four, but they could be a little sneaky enough to inhibit Constantine Films from making another movie without their say-so. So if Disney controls distribution, Constantine would have no choice but to work with the Mouse House and by extension Marvel Studios on another Fantastic Four movie, again from 2017. So we speculated the Josh Trank one came out in 2015. We did the math. 2022 would have been the year they should have started production. First Steps started production 2024. So we're thinking Constantine is out of the picture at this point, but we really don't know. In the end, Eischinger made a small fortune by going forward with a disgraceful display of integrity until someone paid him handsomely to stop.
You know what, man? Sometimes that's the best way to make money. Just, I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing till you pay me to stop.
And that's showbiz, baby. So that is the history of this movie, why it was made. It was essentially to keep the character rights for this German production company that ultimately went nowhere. And thank God, we think it's back with Disney, but we don't know.
I wouldn't be surprised if there was a buyout.
There's some sort of, we don't see the legal paragraphs and languages of these contracts, but
let me just say, as a sports guy, ESPN has just bought NFL Sunday Ticket, and they're supposedly, as of record date, purchasing MLB.TV. So you're talking about a company with limitless money. I think they could get Constantine Films to play nice. So I wouldn't be surprised if there was a massive buyout, and that was actually part of the Fantastic Four rollout. Because there's just no way they roll this into the Doomsday arc, the First Steps into Doomsday arc, without complete 100% total control over the Fantastic Four property.
That's what I think so too. But First Steps, if you notice in the credits, there was a 20th Century Fox logo at the end of the credits. So they did this with Deadpool and Wolverine as well. I'm not sure if it's just because the characters if there's still like a clause hanging around. I don't know. But let's just hope Constantine Films and Eischinger is nowhere to be seen, because that guy apparently sucks, in my opinion.
The worst.
All right, Nick, let's get into this movie. I'm going to read this log line. I think we should just jump in to plot talk, because what a plot to talk about. Nick, the log line is, when dosed with cosmic rays, 4 intrepid explorers are given incredible powers. That's like a trivia, what superheroes are we referencing?
The fact that they didn't say fantastic powers is such a miss, and I'm already out.
A little bit of a reference to the Incredibles. And we're going to get into the incredible story of the Fantastic Four in 1994 in Plot Talk.
Plot Talk.
All right, James. Well, we're going to start out, and I'll say this for the whole movie. One thing they did was keep it fairly comic book accurate here. We got Reed Richards and Victor Von Doom, not yet doctors. They're young scientists, I think maybe students. And they're going to be conducting themselves a little experiment because that's what scientists do.
Nick, and before the movie started, I had a cackle. I chuckled. I laughed because there was an FBI warning in the beginning of illegal distribution of this film was not going to be allowed. And guess what? It was super distributed. I was like, oh yeah, those FBI labels that came in front of the VHSs and the DVDs. Also, as we begin this movie, I'm getting big Kroll vibes. A lot of space, a lot of old-timey art. I don't know what you call that. It's not quite computer-generated images of space. It's like drawings, but there's some superimposed stuff. But the music, and I think it was also, again, the ripped video quality, big Kroll vibes.
Massive Kroll vibes. That's a great call.
Yeah, big Kroll vibes here. We have our college rivalry, our classic Victor Von Doom versus Reed Richards. They're kind of frenemies. They seem like they get a little bit annoyed with each other, but they constantly work with each other. Iron sharpens iron. You know how it goes. So they're in college, and Sue and Johnny, they're going to be literal children in this movie, Nick. Now, this is a little bit comic accurate because I said, okay, so Sue is like 13 and Reed is in college and these guys are going to get together. Creepy.
He's dreamy.
Actually, Nick, a panel from a 1970s comic run by John Byrne. It does have a similar age gap here because in one of the panels, it has a older Reed, it has a younger Sue, and it says, suddenly, she is once again 12 years old and meeting for the first time the shy, bookish college freshman who has taken a room at her aunt's boarding house. She once feels again the unmistakable pangs of first love, a love that will burn true and sure through all the years to follow. In this movie, it looks like Sue is 13, and again, Reed is a college student. He's buddies with his friend Ben Grimm. I guess Reed lives at this boarding house where young Sue and young Johnny are also staying at. Ben's there playing video games, which looked like a fake video game, by the way. It looked like it was someone just animated a cartoon and then they just pretended to be playing a game.
This podcast has a tough history with fake video games. Leonard.
Nick, actually, I was trying to see if we had any friends in the show in this movie. I did find one. There was Ricky Dean Logan, who apparently played a busboy in this movie. I have no idea where that is. I can't recall that. But he did play Data in Griff's gang in the future sequence of Back to the Future Part 2. So I was like, okay, cool, friend of the show. But also, this young Johnny is Philip Van Dyke, who is kind of associated friend of the show because he ended up playing Luke in the Halloween Town series, which is related to the last episode we did of Return to Halloween Town. He was only in the first two, but he was the only recognizable guy out of this entire movie for me.
Distant relative of the show. Almost Nick Cassavetes.
Almost. That would have been sweet.
Almost.
It's a little bit awkward because Ree comes into the boarding house and then Sue is obviously swooning. She's swooning over him. I love that when he walks into the boarding house, I think he was supposed to bump into her, but the kid is just so far back from the door that she just falls down as soon as he walks in because he's so dreamy. I was like, okay. And just like the documentary said, they didn't do a lot of rehearsals. They just said, do this, and we're going to shoot it.
But James, we're back with Victor. We're back with Richard. And like I said before, an experiment goes wrong.
It's actually comic accurate because in the comics, an experiment goes wrong due to Doom's overzealousness and there's miscalculations and he physically gets scarred and he resents Reed Richards for it. In this movie, there's this star comet or something called Colossus in this movie, and they want to harness its energy. Michael Bailey Smith or Ben Grimm realizes something's wrong from like out in the field because everyone's watching the space show like it's some sort of fireworks show, and he just goes Reed and then starts sprinting to the lab and saves him. But then we think Doom is dead, but he's not really dead.
Doom's never dead. Yeah, I was going to say, this is comic book accurate. I'm going to do a prediction on this show right here, right now. There is a Marvel unit, right? There's multiple realities where different things happen for the same situation. There is a reality of this where Tony Stark and Reed switch places doing the same experiment with Dr. Doom because he is also at this college. So Doomsday, anyone? We might see a similar situation.
Joseph Culp, you showing up? That'd be absolutely amazing.
That would be insane. This is how we get Robert Downey Jr., Tony Stark as Doom. What? Okay, we'll see. My prediction, they're going to use that storyline, this exact scenario, experiment gone wrong, body switching, who knows? But like you said, James, Doom, presumed dead. And we're going to jump forward years later, and we're going to get our Fantastic Four origin story.
Yep, Sue is now of age, so it's not creepy anymore. So we do have Rebecca Staub and Jay Underwood playing Sue Storm and Johnny Storm. And I think it's Sue's mom. Sue and Johnny's mom gives them the moniker of the Fantastic Four.
Look at you. The Fantastic Four.
How fitting. It always has to come from like a newsreel or someone giving them the name. Or you can do the classic Josh Trank one. I gotta say, it's fantastic.
Say that again.
Speaking of newsreel, James, we do in this movie get what feels like the old 50s Adam West Batman, where we get the spinning newspaper reel, like.
Yeah, and I gotta say, a lot of the scenes played like a 90s Folgers commercial.
Anyone for a ride in a rocket ship? I'll drive. Yes.
Yes, absolutely.
You've got a lot to do.
Yep.
And I don't know if it was because of the ripped video quality also not helping it out, but a lot of it just felt very, I don't know, just like weird energy in that Sue Storm coming down the stairs and there's music playing and the mom says, "You guys, there you are. What a Fantastic Four." And Nick, during the scene, I don't know if you noticed it, but the music, which was, I actually liked the music. And again, the composers were some of those guys that spent money out of their own pocket to hire a 40-piece orchestra to do the music. But it did sound very similar to the Jurassic Park theme. If you go back and watch this scene, it was a lot of similar notes and melodies, but then it would kind of trickle into something else. But I was like, this seems like it's ripped off material.
Hello, Reed.
Hello, Peter.
It did feel that way a little bit. I think you had some pretty overzealous composers who thought, "Wow, this is what the time is, and we're going for it."
It's clobbering time.
I will also say we saw it in the documentary, but I would say for a lot of these scenes feeling cheesy or weird and the energy being off was once they wrapped, they didn't spend any money really on editing, cutting. There was no reshoots. I'm assuming with how fast this movie went along, there was just one take on pretty much every single shot, maybe two, never three. I would put money on never three. There's only so much you can do with one take, and then the edit bay floor is clean because nothing ever hits it because you're just using everything you have and going, that's the scene. Because scenes really felt cut off prematurely or dialogue felt incomplete.
They even need to add a couple scenes that we'll see here coming up. But yeah, you can see just a lot of small budget vibes from those incomplete scenes, weird writing, odd editing choices, and maybe the music wasn't completely original. But I'm not accusing anybody. But Nick, I will accuse Ben Grimm, aka Michael Bailey Smith, of being straight yacked. That guy was in shape. My God. It makes sense because he was actually an offensive tackle for the Dallas Cowboys, but he had to retire from sports due to an injury.
He's not ripped, defined like a Mr. Universe would be back in that day.
A bulker. Yeah, big bulk.
But he just looked like that country boy in shape. I
would still argue he's defined. Bro was buff. Bro was yacked out of his mind.
He's buff, but the kind of buff where you're throwing hay bales around outside in outside of Omaha. Not like I'm shredded and like all my muscles are poking out.
Which was funny. He was like 6'5" and super buff, and they made this thing suit kind of like Jack Frost from 1997 when they only made one Jack Frost snowman. In this one, they only made one Ben Grimm, the Thing suit, and they put it on a stuntman who was way smaller than Michael Bailey Smith. And if they made that suit for Michael Bailey Smith, he'd be a actual monster. But he kind of shrinks in size because it has to be the stuntman's height in this movie, which is a little bit of a loss.
There is a transition scene we'll get to. But yeah, like the Thing and Michael Bailey Smith are the same size during that transition. And you go, huh, that's weird.
Also, just as weird as Ben and Alicia Masters' chemistry. Alicia Masters is back. She was missing in First Steps, but she was played by Kerry Washington in the 2000s Tim Story Fantastic Fours. Alicia Masters is Ben's blind love interest, and just very like high school, bump into each other, drop the books, pick it up. They see each other. She can't see because she's blind. But Ben bumps into Alicia and she drops a sculpture she was working on, and we get that classic clay pot shattering sound effect.
Reed, what's going on? Hey, what?
He bumps into her and then he says, "Hey, watch where you're going." And then she says, "Oh, my hard work." And it's very dramatically played.
Oh, all my work.
She's like freaking out. And then Ben stands her up and says, Hey, you're safe with me. You're good.
Hey, what?
12 seconds later.
Let me help you.
Careful, what are you doing? Put me down.
It's okay. I got you. You're safe with me.
I was like, calm down, Ben. Like, you just knocked into her and said, watch where you're going. You don't deserve the sexual tension yet. But apparently it's super valid because Masters is sprung for Ben. She is obsessed with this man after this point.
Also, she has no idea if her sculpture was good or not. We'll just say that. Two, I've always loved the idea of Alicia Masters.
Around a lot. She feels around a lot because she feels Ben's face and is like, I now know what your face looks like, and I'm going to sculpt it later because I'm a psycho.
But I've always loved the idea of Alicia Masters because someone was in the illustrator's room with the creatives, and they go, Ben Grimm, he's a dynamic character. He needs a love interest. But who would love the Thing? And they went, I don't know, a blind chick?
How about a blind person?
They were like, perfect.
a little bit of just an undersell for a message there. It's like, well, she can't see the man, so it's all right.
So it's easier to love them. Our crew is going to be heading into space, and we're going to get hit by cosmic rays, and we're going to go ahead and get our powers.
I was wondering, why did Sue Storm and Johnny Storm go on the space mission? We don't know what their jobs are, if they're qualified. I don't know. But Nick, this failed mission is really suffering from bad sound design when they're up in the spaceship. There's a lot of yelling in this quiet space, and all we have is just some minimal static noise and some beeping. Reed's freaking out, Johnny's freaking out, and it's so quiet. We're missing like a tense score or maybe even some exaggerated sci-fi failure noises. I don't know. Get the Foley artist in here.
It was beeps.
So awkward. It was just like beep, beep. We're going down. What's happening?
Hang on. Susan, activate the antenna. Diamonds of fate. Ben, get us out of here! Hang!
And that's literally just no post. That's what the movie had. It had no post production.
Like, no dollars for anything. And yeah, we crash land on Earth. The spaceship blew up in space. It blew up in space. It didn't blow up in the atmosphere and we're falling down to Earth. It blew up in space. And somehow we're back on Earth. And we're totally fine. Like we have a few bruises, like we're in a car crash. And at least Reed Richards calls us out and says the spaceship blew up, but we're all fine. So we find out our powers. Johnny finds out that he is a walking blowtorch, and his crash out of having his powers is a little drawn out and awkward because he says, I can't stay calm. And then Reed's like, Johnny, take it easy. And then he does one of these.
Well, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Excuse me.
Sit down, Johnny.
Someone check Johnny's pockets. I think he's on drugs. Susan freaks out and decides to fall backwards towards a sharp object, but then Reed stretches out his arm and saves her. Very dramatic.
Susan, no!
It's like, okay. We're kind of making Sue a little bit of a damsel. when we decide like we need to calm down and we're just going to stay the night, Reed says, "Oh, Johnny, keep the fire going." And Nick, why is it when Johnny looks at the fire in his hand, we have this very unsettling tension riser sound effect, and there's some non-diegetic maniacal laughing going on Johnny's head, and his eyes are turning red. I was like, is he going to snap?
If I didn't know the Fantastic Four, I was like, oh, that's the villain now.
Yeah, and everyone's looking at Johnny like, are you okay, Johnny? It was so weird. I was like, what?
Also, he doesn't keep the fire going.
Psycho. Johnny.
He's insane.
Johnny.
Hey, Johnny!
But we're going to get saved. The Marines are going to pick you up. Psych. This is actually Dr. Doom's goons. Hashtag Doom Goons. Victor Von Doom is back. Joseph Culp. He's culping.
He do be culping. So we're going to have issues with Dr. Doom throughout this. So he's going to do a lot of monologues in this. And we're going to have a lot of Doom close-ups where, you know, the screen is just 60% of his face in his Doom mask.
Now, did you not like that? Because I actually like that.
I was okay with it because he was this ominous figure throughout. Obviously, we know Fantastic Four. Audiences in 1994 maybe wouldn't have been as familiar, so it would have had a lot of cooler of an effect. The issue, and we see this in the documentary, I'm glad they called this out because we both noticed this when watching the movie, is that sometimes the sound is clear, like it's Culp's voice, and other times it sounds like it is Culp's voice with a metal mask on. And it's just this muffled. And James, you pointed out this is a VHS rip. We don't have subtitles. I don't know what you're saying.
I was like, I can't turn on subtitles. I don't know what he's saying. And we're totally lost on this. And yeah, I love that Joseph Culp pointed this out and said, whoever did the sound or the sound editor or the sound recordist said, "Oh, I like the way your voice sounds underneath the mask." And he's like, "But you can't quite make out what I'm saying. So why would we do that? Can we not do any effects on it?" Probably not, because we don't have the budget for it.
A project of this magnitude must be undertaken at once. Beautiful and charming little country. I just can't allow that.
Yeah, well, who asked you, you overgrown tin can?
Hot-tempered, aren't we, Jonathan?
Joseph Culp kept saying, like, if this movie ever gets a remaster, I will literally come in the booth and say all my lines again, which is dedication.
And this is where he was reaching out to Corman, and he was reaching out to the production crew and saying, when are you going to have me come back in and say my lines again so that we can do this right? And they were like, "Oh, we'll reach out. We'll let you know." And he goes, "Okay, let me know." And then a few days would go by and he'd call and he'd say, "Hey, when do you want me in?" Also, like, Doom's end is really bad. I guess there was supposed to be a final scene with Doom that was never shot. And he'd say, "When are we shooting the last Doom scene? And when am I re-saying my lines?" Like, "Oh, we'll let you know." Obviously, didn't happen. So Culp is just pissed because he's like, "This is my thing. I was supposed to be Dr. Doom in the Fantastic Four. It's going to jumpstart my career. Why is my voice sound muffled? Why don't I have all my scenes in? What is happening?"
You know what? He's given a pretty decent performance despite the conditions. And I actually did like the costumes, although they're very cheesy and corny. I thought they were very faithful to the comic accurate look. And I did like Dr. Doom's look in this movie. Obviously, you can tell it's like very low quality material, but I think the design was pretty faithful.
Here's how I have to keep thinking about it. If a college kid was doing their senior project and this was their movie, I'd be really impressed. And that's almost the lens that I have to look at it through to say, wow, you were given nothing. You were shoestringing this. You were basically on your own. You had people around you who were just not committed to the project, who knew that, no, this isn't going to be released. And so the actors and a lot of the crew in there, I have to think of them as somebody who was just doing it for the passion. And so with that in mind, I like the acting.
They're all into it. Yeah.
I liked the acting. I liked the look. And Ben Grimm's The Thing costume was actually, for 1994, pretty darn good.
I actually thought the practical suit was It was almost better than the Michael Chiklis one, actually. I mean, it gave off a little bit 90s Ninja Turtle vibes with the animatronics and I don't know, just like the general look of it. But it was a little bit more accurate than the Michael Chiklis practical suit, now that I'm thinking about it. But yeah, I did like the effort that was put in to the design of the characters. And what you said about the acting, there was a couple of scenes where I said, man, if this is where production quality can make or break a performance, because you can be one of the best actors in the world, but if the video sucks and the lighting sucks and the sound sucks and the blocking sucks and the state and the cinematography sucks, you're going to say like, this is a bad movie. But you can have the same exact acting in a super pretty stylized cinematography, really high quality sound design, well lit movie, and put it the same acting in a home video, and they're going to come out different because of the quality. And that you're not doing the actors' performances justice by having it be this low budget quality. So I did think about that. A couple scenes I was like, okay, we're kind of overacting or a little stage performance-y, but for the most part, I thought I was trying to put on the lens, if this was an actual production and I'm looking at these performances, it could have been valid.
Yeah, I feel bad for the crew here, James. But going back to our movie here, Fantastic Four, they are taken by Doom, by the Marines who are not Marines. They're, I guess, maybe supposed to be Latverians at this point in the game who are loyal to Doom. We didn't really get into that Latverian part of Doom there.
And Nick, I love how they escape because instead of coordinating a fight scene I guess they're in Latveria, because we don't know where they're at when they're in Doom's headquarters.
Well,
but
Castle Doom should be in Latveria, so I'll run with that.
We don't know where they crash landed, but they were transported to Doom's compound, his facilities. The way they're going to get out of here is they're going to get kind of smart too. Something's not right. And instead of coordinating a fight scene with stunts, they decide to do that like with the spinning newspaper, just rapidly rotate the footage in post-production and then add in the most standard punch sound effects of the psh, 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 and it's Ben Grimm. He beat up the goons, and they're going to do the thing where they take their outfits.
What am I supposed to do with these guys?
Where we could have just cut to that. I don't know why we decided to. So this is where I also fault some of the creative decisions, because, you know, they said, oh, we were doing our best job, but like that was a bad decision. We could have just said like, oh, here comes the goons, and Ben could have went like, it's clobbering time. And then we just cut to the goons are out of commission. But instead we rotate the screen a million miles an hour, and that we had the psh, 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 and then we cut to Reed, Johnny, and Sue now in those hazmat suits. And I love this is another low budget quality charm, I guess you can call it. They're ready to turn around and leave Ben with the unconscious goons, and they do the thing where they're supposed to walk past the camera, but they can't quite fit past the camera, so they have to do that thing where they hunch down and duck below the camera, but you can tell it's difficult to do because they're a little bit slow to exit the frame. So this is probably shot in a room where they can't remove walls, and they're literally just in a room, and they're like, the camera's here, this guy's here, like you have to just squeeze past underneath us. And I was like, oh guys, oh no, this is shining through.
This is the Roger Corman special.
I gotta say, Sue is such a damsel in this movie. In that crash landing scene, she has to be cradled in Reed's arms. There's a little bit of a scared weenie. And when they escape the compound, she does this thing where she goes invisible, and there's these two goons with machine guns standing about 2 feet away from her on her left and her right. And they just start ripping bullets into each other, and they both start convulsing, and then they both die. And then she becomes visible again in between them. And I thought, okay, are you disappearing from the face of the earth, reality? Or are you just invisible? Because I feel like those bullets would have hit you.
Yeah, that's a good point. I didn't even think about that. Would have made more sense if the bullets all bounced back because of her force field or something, but there was no force field power in this one.
I was gonna say I only saw force field powers once. Sue relies on the incompetence of goons a lot with her invisibility.
That's great in the 90s.
I'll tell you what, this movie gave us quite a bit of its clobbering times, which I guess I'm happy about.
Doom, it's clobbering time. It's clobbering time. It's clobbering time.
But Ben is going to work. He's a bulletproof rock. But when we get back to New York, he's upset that he's a rock. There's this scene where this is one of the scenes where in the documentary, the director said, we need to add a scene of Ben walking around town. And they had already wrapped production on this movie. So they literally grabbed the casting assistant, Mark Sykes, and they just put the casting guy in the Ben Grimm, the Thing outfit, and just guerrilla shot him running around the streets of New York. Just no permits, like no nothing. They're just like, we need a scene of Ben questioning his life and run around the city. And they just throw some rando in the suit and just go shoot on the streets of New York. I thought, wow. Guerrilla filmmaking at its finest.
It was fun. That's when the guys in the documentary were like, was that with you? It was with you. And
the
you
director
could tell,
was like, yeah, that was you, right? Yeah. So,
yeah.
The guy reminded, we've been there. We made college short films and I applied for permits with the city and they denied my request. And I said, well, I still have to do this assignment. So I'm going to go out and do it. I don't care what you say.
Yeah. And you just make those memories. So it was nice to see that a lot of the crew, maybe not the cast, but the crew had some fun memories and were able to treat it like an adventure. So Ben's questioning his life, and what happens when you're questioning your life? Somebody with a cult from a cult comes and talks to you and says, hey, you want to come with me and I'll show you something cool? And Ben Grimm's like, yeah. So we're going to go down into the sewers and we're going to meet the jeweler.
And when I watched this movie, I thought, and even my wife said, oh, Mole Man. I was like, yeah, good job, Mole Man. And it turns out, no, this is not Mole Man. This is the jeweler.
We don't have rights to Mole Man.
Once again, those dang Marvel character rights don't belong to us. So instead of the Mole Man, we have an underground troll leprechaun looking man with a monocle who goes by the jeweler and not Mole Man. And there's this weird B plot of him wanting a queen. So he kidnaps Alicia Masters quite randomly. Nick, was there any selection draft process of why we went with Alicia Masters?
No, I thought it was very convenient that Ben Grimm is down there and then you grab his love interest.
His lady.
At this point.
Not, well, like I said, she's not love interest. She is just sprung off Ben. Not even seeing him, just touching his face one time. But Nick.
Lust interest.
Alicia, this kidnap scene, she is down bad. Because she sensually caresses her lips with her fingers, closes her eyes, kind of rolls her eyes back, after touching the mouth of a Ben Grimm bust that she is sculpting based on the one interaction she had with him when he bumped into her and said, hey, watch where you're going, lady.
She needs it.
Mole Man wants a queen, and they decide to kidnap Alicia Masters, like we said, randomly. And she has some head busts delivered to her place of our fallen heroes, quote unquote fallen heroes. We think the world thinks Fantastic Four is dead, although they're not known as the Fantastic Four, so they're just random
astronauts.
Yeah, okay, and two of them are just unqualified kids.
Hard to follow.
I'm sure you recall the scene where she had the sculpture head bust shipped.
Hard to forget,
but it's weird because she does the sculpting. So why? So anyway, she has some busts delivered to her place of our fallen heroes. And I was like, is she big time? Is she like the sculptor of the town? Does she make like the best sculptures? And they're like, hey, here's a reference of here's a mold of their face. We got it somehow. We need you to make a bigger statue of them. And Nick, again, she recognizes Ben Grimm's face by barely touching the bust. And after she bumped into him that one time, and then they sent her like name tags in Braille. And she's like, Ben Grimm? I was like, did they? Because there's a part later in the movie when he says, I don't think we officially met. I'm Ben Grimm.
I don't think we've formally met. I'm Ben Grimm.
I'm Alicia Masters.
But did she know his name when they bumped into each other?
I don't think so. Also, whoever delivered the bust would have been like, who's this rock face thing?
That bus guy was weird too. He was like, he also was hanging around too long. He was like, yeah, here you go.
It was lingering.
Thank you. And then he's like, yeah. And she's like, do you need something else? He's like, oh no. And then I was like, what was that?
So these were used for the helmet fittings, right?
That's right.
I thought so. Good luck on that memorial statue, by the way. Those people really, they deserve the best.
I'll try. Good night.
Good night. Oh, good night. Yeah. Right. Good night.
What was that? Does this lady just have weird sexual tension with strange men? I don't know. Not with these mole men goons, Nick. Because when the mole men goons come in and try to kidnap Alicia, they're circling her and she's batting her hands around. And Nick, this is 10 out of 10 silly goose behavior. I thought, what is this scene? What is this kidnap scene?
Like your life depends on it.
What are we doing?
It seemed like a lot of henchmen to kidnap a blind lady as well.
And they're literally just going, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Who's there? What do you want?
Just grab her. Just grab her. What's with the tickle fingers?
You need like 1-2 people max.
1. Sorry, Alicia. Sorry, blind people. You're kind of an easy target. I said it.
Yeah. So Alicia gets kidnapped by the mole man's goons. Good on you and Emily for recognizing the jeweler should have been the mole man, because I texted you, who the hell are these underground jewelers? What is this?
Sewer jewelers. Sewer jewelers?
Whatever they are. I was so confused. I was like, what are we even doing here? Once I watched a documentary when they said it was supposed to be Mole Man, I go, okay.
Got it.
Thank you.
It's too late to change him.
Finally checks out. Now the jeweler can't marry his kidnapped blind wife. Also, if you're going to kidnap a wife, would you? I mean, maybe blind would be good.
If you look like the mole man, the jeweler, yes, you want her to be blind.
That's fair. Now the jeweler needs to get a diamond for his bride, but it turns out, guess who else wants that diamond, James?
Dr. Doom. And this diamond was stolen by the jeweler in the beginning, and it was supposed to be a key component in Reed Richards' flight up to Colossus to harness the power, but he swapped it. He Indiana Jonesed it for a fake diamond, and that's why the space mission went awry. So the jeweler still has this massive clump of diamonds that must be worth a crazy amount. It was like a blooming onion of diamonds. Yeah, Dr. Doom says, well, the Fantastic Four survived the mission that was foiled coincidentally by the jeweler, because he kind of did Doom an accidental favor. But he's like, okay, I need that diamond to make a super laser. So yeah, Doom is going to come in, and Nick, Dr. Doom, this was sick in my opinion. Doom makes an explosion entrance into the sewers, and the sewer people, these jewelers, immediately open fire. I was like, okay, these are good goons. Because some guy comes in with an explosion entrance like it's a WWE entrance.
Ride or die, man.
And Doom is bulletproof, and then he flexes on them. I was like, that's gangsta shit right there. Did you see that?
Made himself bigger. He made himself bigger, a bigger target for the bullets.
He was like, get off me. Well, he flex, and then his Doom goons open fire, and they're mowing down these sewer people. And I was like, okay, this is the coolest that Doom has been the entire movie, despite his maniacal laughing, sounding like he's in pain. And like we said, it's also really hard to hear him underneath that mask.
Might have been the coolest Doom we've ever seen on screen.
Might have been. I wouldn't argue that. This Doom is unhinged, hates Reed Richards, and is ready to murder people. And when he pulled up with that gangster ass move, I was like, shit, I see you, Doom.
Doom doesn't quite know what's going on.
Same with the audience.
But Ben Grimm is there, and he's not aware of his affinity for Alicia Masters, but he's going to take her hostage anyway. He's like, there's this blind lady, and I'm just taking her hostage. I didn't really see a reason for him to put the connection together that this is a strategic person to take hostage at this point in the game. But Doom don't care. So he's going to take Alicia's going to tell Ben Grimm.
It's clobbering time.
Ben, no! I love you.
Again,
met him once.
Love or lust, impossible to know, but she's feeling it. Now, this is my biggest issue with the movie. There's a lot of issues, but as far as lore and storyline goes,
this is just canonically like, what? What is this? This is like Hulk 2003 status of we're breaking canon.
When Alicia confesses her love to Ben Grimm, the Thing, he transforms from the Thing back into Ben Grimm. And he seems very upset by this because if there was one time you needed to be the Thing, it was in the sewers against these henchmen. So he can't do anything now. He needs to run.
Also, his biggest issue, and this is from the comics and it's featured in this movie, he resents Reed for, quote unquote, turning him into an ugly ass rock man. So this is the one thing he's wanted the entire time, and then he turns back into human, like you said, at the worst time. So he sprints out of the sewers, screams in the street, and there's these rapid back and forth cuts from the rock form thing back to human Ben Grimm, and then the rotation screen is back. And then we're back to the Thing. And I thought, okay, this was a big problem for Ben Grimm earlier in the movie, that he was a rock man. It's a big character arc in the entire history of the Ben Grimm iterations of comics and films. And it was confusing. But Ben is back being the Thing. He's back in the crew. And Nick, it is now family business to go after Doom.
Yes, because he has the diamond now. And he has this crazy space laser.
Splazer.
That he's going to kill him with. So what do we have to do as a family? We got to stop Mr. Doom. Not to be lost in all of this, Reed and Sue, their love story is happening. It's very fast. It's very forced. Clearly a lot of scenes hit the cutting room floor or just weren't shot.
Still more convincing than the Alicia Masters Ben Grimm love story. That's got to be they got to have crazy sex. That she's probably psycho. She's probably like, don't you ever leave me. Don't you ever. And then Ben's like, oh, I won't, babe. Got to get my rocks off somehow. I'm here all pod.
Perfect. Well, we're going to have our final showdown, James.
You're like, shut up. Moving on.
And let me, like, we're pretty far into this movie, so we didn't mention the pacing of this movie.
Yeah,
but this movie is paced terribly.
When we escaped the compound, again, I don't know if it was my timestamp on Daily Motion not updating, but I think it was minute 50 that we were still stuck in the compound. But we're back in Latveria. We traveled all the way across the globe again. 16-hour flight. Hello? Who knows? Nick, it is final showdown time. It is the Fantastic Four versus Doom and the Goons. We both noticed it. There's a lot of low budget action and unfinished effects. Nick, Doom captures the Fantastic Four in these light beams, like a beam me up kind of thing. They're all stuck in this light thing. Doom is sucking off the Fantastic Four. I think he wants the Colossus out of them because Colossus, the cloud dust comet, it does live within the four. And I did like this reasoning. I don't think this is from the comics. I think this was a unique reason of why they got their powers. But earlier in the movie, Reed Richards says, oh, Colossus has touched our psyche. It made us feel that our worst character defects are actually our greatest strengths. I thought that was a cool take on that because in certain movies and comic books, it's like where they were when the cosmic rays were hitting them, and that's why they have their unique powers, or it's unexplained. But this one was kind of cool. I was like, I like that. But Nick, he's trying to suck Colossus out of these guys, and then Reed does the big toe and then kicks something over that was the cause of all their pain, and then it disrupts the suckage. And then Ben, I think for the third or fourth time, says, it's clobbering time. And then Johnny even goes like, flame on. And I guess flame on and flame off are the literal start and stop words in this movie. I feel like Johnny in the other comics and movies just says it for fun. But in this movie, they explain, no, he literally has to say flame on to turn on his fire. Although that isn't always the case because he sneezes one time and lights a bush on fire. Sue, again, goes invisible, relies on the incompetency of goons to run into each other. She uses one force field in this. And it seems like we're kind of we're winning this fight. Ben's going to work here.
Family's vibing.
Nick, we had our final showdown, but then we get into a final showdown, which is a 1v1 with Reed and Doom, and a 1v1 with Johnny versus the giant laser that is heading towards Earth, I think, or New York. I don't know.
Yeah, and I thought to myself, how is Johnny going to defeat a laser?
Yeah, we'll get to that. That's going to be our final scene. But first, we have Doom versus Reed. They're out on this balcony or something. Doom actually has some Wolverine fingertips, and Reed just clowns Dr. Doom with stretchy punches. Just looks so funny, just stretching out. And he does one of those like, and this is for this. This is for hurting my friends.
That's for trying to kill me. That's for trying to kill my friends. And this is for being a real jerk.
And then punches him, and that's the final blow that sends him over the edge. And then he's like caught on a ledge, and then he's like, Reed, we used to be friends. And then Reed's like, give me your hand, Doom. And then Doom's like, you fucking pussy. You can't even put the final blow on me. And then he's like, fuck you. He like drops, just drops himself. And then like, that's the end of Dr. Doom. I was like, okay. He volunteers to let go and fall to his death because Reed didn't have the guts to do that. Okay.
He slips out of his gloves. So he's just like, ah.
And then one of the Doom gauntlet hands, like Iron Giants at the end, like the end of Iron Giant when the hand comes alive and then he's going to go find his body. But spoilers. Yeah. So we're like, okay, Doom's not dead. I don't know. But Nick, our bad guys defeated. The Dooms have been shown up. Who knows what happened to the jeweler and those fucking freaks in the sewer? But we're going to end on a wedding. We're getting married. It's Reed. It's Sue. Sue is in a wedding dress. And for some reason, all of the guys are in their Fantastic Four costumes during the wedding. Even Reed. He's not in a tuxedo. He's literally in his spandex.
I like how we still haven't introduced the world to the Fantastic Four at this point. It's like, oh, the astronauts are alive and they have superpowers.
I don't think we did. And we don't know these astronauts. They're just rando astronauts. It's not like this was a big thing that everybody was watching. It was like we just went up and that's it. Nick, we end on this goofy waving stretched out puppet hand in a limo. And my God, I think this was the only time I laughed out loud at the movie because I really was hoping for a lot of so bad it's good laughs in this movie. But I think just the video quality itself really just was hyper distracting. But this Reed Richards, just killer clowns from outer space quality. And I don't know if it's animatronic or if it's like a pool noodle and they just put a little sleeve and a glove at the end of it. But he's waving out a limo. And I love Joseph Culp's reaction to that from the documentary. He says, I saw that shot where Reed is waving his hand in a limo driving away. And I thought, oh, that's interesting. I'm not so sure about that effect.
Like they were so caught up in the fact they were making a Fantastic Four movie. And then at the very end, they were like, oh my God, we're in a Roger Corman production. And all the wave came crashing down on them like, oh no, what have we done?
What have we done indeed? It's coming crashing down. This movie was a crash and burn. And Nick, that brings us to the credits and our funniest names in the credits. Nick, Charles Butto was in this movie working on it. And also Mary Cheers. Mary spelled like Merry Christmas and Cheers spelled like Cheers. That's kind of sounds like a fake name. I will throw out a bonus one here. Our costume designer was not Reed Richards, but it was Reeve Richards. Oddly enough. Yeah. I do got to pop the corn here on this movie. I have a mini kernel to pop and then a big kernel to pop. My mini kernel, Nick, is we know there was essentially $0 for the effects, and apparently one of the visual effects designers lied on his resume. But despite the crappy hand dealt to this movie, what legitimately is worse? That Johnny versus the laser visual CGI, whatever that was, or Spawn in Hell, which was a movie that came out 3 years later, which we watched and reviewed. You might recall he was fighting the Quiznos Satan monster of hell.
Sponge monkeys.
He was fighting the sponge monkey and a bunch of Spawn clones. But that Johnny versus laser really looked like it belonged in a different property. It looked like it was part of those Hanna-Barbera cartoons.
Yeah, it didn't look real. It didn't look like a special effect. It looked like
It looked like an animation render of what they wanted to do.
Sunday morning cartoon.
And him like flipping, like the beam is like smacking him, and he's like, he's like scorpion flipping. I was like, what? So they referenced this footage when they talked about the visual design guy who lied on his resume. So I'm not sure if he actually did this or if it was that Mr. Film visual effects company that did it. Regardless, they have $0. But what do you think was worse?
Given the circumstance, I know you asked not given the circumstance, just at face value, what's worse? At face value, I think Johnny versus the Laser is worse. Given the circumstance, Spawn in Hell, hands down. I don't even think it's a question.
It's really hard because I still think the Spawn in Hell looks so bad, and I still hate that one more. And I kind of give the Johnny one a little bit of a pass. But yeah, if you're trying to give it a little bit non-biased, does it match the aesthetic? I guess not. I guess the Johnny vs. Laser just does not look anything remotely related to what was on screen in this movie.
Yeah, but we also remember from the Spawn episode that in the post-production, the money they threw extra to try and really mess with that visual effects. So in both cases, the studios and the visual effects garbage screwed people over. But circumstance-wise, hell is unforgivable. Like Spawn is unforgivable.
Hell is hell. But Nick, like I said, despite this lack of budget and production quality, here's my big kernel I got to pop. Real talk. Could this movie have cooked? Let's say it had been given a $45 million budget like Blade or like Spawn at the time, and there was a studio backing it. Now, bear in mind, it's still 1994, and again, like we said, Marvel's film attempts at making comic book movies were a little bit shaky and unreliable. So I don't want us to say, oh yeah, no, this would have been great if it had the budget, because it still was the 90s. We still didn't quite have our footing. But let's imagine those acting performances and with a better camera and better lighting. And let's imagine better costumes and let's imagine better effects. Could this have been, where do you think this would land? Mid, decent, so bad it's good? Kind of hard to tell.
I think we would have gotten to a so bad it's good. It is very hard to tell because you're talking about a completely different producer, completely different director, a better script, right? Like just from the ground up, because Roger Corman has no business directing anything that's supposed to mean something in this world. No offense to the Corman, but he's made his money on 400 movies that are B-list garbage. It is what it is.
The Corman
himself, which is totally fine. So knowing what movies were and knowing what the special effects they were working with, I don't think you could have really made a Fantastic Four that was convincing. I mean, when they made Iron Man, it was the perfect time in the world of special effects to do that. And so I don't think anything in the 90s would have, or really I'll say Spider-Man 1, Sam Raimi's Spider-Man was probably the first time when the special effects went like, okay, we can do superhero movies now. This is good. Because I still don't think that these powers, the Fantastic Four, are really hard to do. A flaming person,
especially Reed. Like the stretchy body always looks so fucking goofy, for real.
Yeah.
So it's hard to pull off.
I don't think there's a world in 1994 where you could have put enough money on it to make it like, wow, that's a good Fantastic Four movie. I think would have got to so bad it's good, where it was at least bearable to watch from a production standpoint. But I really don't think the technology just wasn't there for the Fantastic Four.
For the time, if they had the budget, I don't think, unless it was like a perfect storm of, I think of Spielberg when he made Jurassic Park. That movie holds up today. And that was a tough movie to do in 1993, a year prior. So again, I think even if you threw all the resources at it, you wouldn't quite have something that was like X-Men 2000 or Sam Raimi's Spider-Man movies. I think we were just a little bit behind. We had to kind of get our rough drafts out. If we're Marvel, if we're comic book fans of movies, we still had some stepping stones to cross over, to learn from mistakes and to make sure the next time we do this, it's going to be for real. And that's when we got that with Blade. We got that with X-Men 2000. We got that with Spider-Man. And then, like you said, Iron Man. We were at a really good time for CGI. Those late 2000s were when we weren't trying to cut budgets on CGI costs, and we were really, really, really trying to make the best CGI that we could do. And Jon Favreau coming in with his take on it, and Robert Downey Jr. That was a perfect storm scenario. Iron Man 1 for realsies.
But even 05 Fantastic Four, visually, effects wise, we were there.
Yeah, visually fine.
Do that movie.
Yeah, but I will say for this movie, they were a little bit more comic book accurate and a little bit more faithful, and they weren't trying to make fun of it like the 2000s ones were, because they suffer from that. We got to be modern and we got to be cool to make fun of this stuff. So I did like that this one went out on a limb and just said we're literally making a live action comic book, or we're making a live action version of the Hanna-Barbera cartoon. I thought that was, I'll give them kudos for that.
Stuck to canon, stuck to the source. And we talk about this all the time with comic book movies. Respect the source material, please.
Please.
Minus Ben turning back from the Thing to Ben with the power of love. Otherwise, all good with my book.
Yeah, that was a rock thrown at the glass house, and the glass house was my TV screen. What the hell? Nick, that is Fantastic Four 1994, and we, despite its flaws, do need to hand out some accolades with our mini pops, Nick. This is our award section. We hand out some goods, some bads, some fantastics, and some Jurassics for this movie. Nick, we're going to start out with the category that we always do, which is going to be the best weapon. Counting it down. 4, 3, 2, 1. Nick, the best weapon you said was the space laser.
It was, James, and you said Doom's laser. So here we are, the space laser. Unfortunately, we never got to see it do any damage, but we have to assume
we didn't really quite see it be used. I mean, there was some footage, like Doom came on a TV screen in the Baxter Building and said, "Oh, that laser you saw, good news, it's finished, Fantastic Four, and you're doomed." And then he showed us like an example of what it could do, and I think it was blowing up some buildings. So I don't think it's Death Star status, but can it destroy a city?
I'd say a city block. Let's say city block.
Okay, city block. Splazer. Now, Nick, you might think that you're introducing the Best Fighter Award, but guess what, buddy? We have a top secret mission for this nominee. And you know what? The only way you and the audience are going to figure out who is the best fighter of Roger Corman's unreleased The Fantastic Four movie from 1994 is by tuning into the Wrap Party Special. It's our end of the year episode where we bring all of our characters together. We talk about all of our movies. We do quizzes, and we have a fictional fighters bracket where these guys are going to go toe to toe. So an exclusive answer for this movie is coming in the Wrap Party. Stay tuned.
All right, James. Well, the audience can't know our best fighter of this movie, but they sure as hell can know who the MVC is, our most valuable character. And buddy, you are revealing it first. So I'm counting you down from 4, and you are showing me the MVC of this movie. 4, 3, 2, 1. James, you said the MVC is Doom, and you even drew his Doom mask. I like it.
Thank you very much. Nick, you went with Ben Grimm, my second choice. I was up in the air between Ben and Doom. Ben's really hard to not hand out the MVC to in a lot of these movies. But tell me about Ben. I'll tell you about Doom.
I feel like Ben was literally, it's just screen time. Ben Grimm, the Thing, had the most screen time. It felt like he was driving the plot. His whole, oh, I'm a monster. Then he's the one who gets down into the sewers to see Doom. So it really felt like a Ben-driven plot. So I just sort of MVC by default. Doom was my second, so it looked like we flip-flopped. We might have a 1A and 1B in there. But James, talk to me about Doom.
Doom was cool in this one. Like we said, this could have been the most comic book accurate Doom we've seen. I liked the look of him despite the cheesy quality and the spandex and the plastic mask and whatnot. going a little bit meta, I do like the performance by Joseph Culp. And again, just that gangster shit of flexing on those mole men jewelers and just fucking up the sewers. That was sick. Like Ben Grimm, I do think he was a plot driver and really gave the Fantastic Four all of their obstacles, basically put them in every single situation that they've ever been in post space disaster. So I went with Doom, but it can go either way. This could be a coin flip scenario. It's not like these guys are really going to make the top 4 at the end of the year wrap party episode.
I like giving it to Doom just because, like we said, like you were saying, we did think that he was a very comic book accurate Doom. He was a good Doom. He was very menacing. Other Dooms have seemed like less of a threat, more of an annoyance. And this Doom
more like
was a problem.
Dr. Glooms.
Dr. Pooh? I don't know.
Dr. Pooh?
I like this Doom, and Dr. Doom is our MVC. And I agree with you. The meta of Joseph Culp and really knowing through the documentary how much he cared about this character.
Giving it his all.
it gives me a little more love for the character. So it's Doom, baby.
Nick, Doom being a highlight, we need to hit our low light of the movie, and that's going to be our nominee for the biggest piece of shit of this movie, fictional character-wise. Nick, let's see that answer. Counting you down from 4, 3, 2, 1. Nick, you said the jeweler was your biggest piece of shit.
I did, and James, you said Mole Man, the jeweler as well.
Yeah, not much to discuss here because he's just a skeevy, ugly-ass looking bitch who steals blind women and forces them to be his underground queen. Not sure.
It is weird. It also, there's definitely that part where it's like that meme where the hot guy says hi to the girl in the office and she goes, hey, good looking. And then the ugly guy comes up and she goes, ew, HR. And yeah, when you're that gross and ugly looking, you're a bigger piece of shit in my point of view. You
kind of deserve it. You kind of deserve it.
Yeah. So,
you can't be bad. You can't be a bad person and look like that. You're just going to be hated by society and hated by this podcast. Because Jeweler, you're our biggest piece of shit of 1994's Fantastic Four. Nick, that is our awards. Some pretty good ones in here, despite this bad movie, with a little mystery surprise box of what is our prize at the end of the year. You'll have to find out when we get there. But Nick, we're going to transition into our final review, and we're going to do that by saying our sarcastic selling points. Nick, I'm going to go first. My sarcastic selling point for this movie is I just need to make this movie to retain some character rights.
James, I'm pretty much right in that same vein. And I just said, let's make a movie that we're not going to release.
Final review. Fight.
Okay, Nick, final review time. While this movie was not supposed to be released, it did get seen by some people. And shockingly, we do have a set of critic scores, starting out with Rotten Tomatoes. Nick, 33% of the critics like this movie. Didn't even know they got their eyes on that.
Yeah, surprise. There was only 12 reviews that I saw, so there were some critics with a lazy Sunday, it seems like, who saw this movie, and 33% said, okay. Now, this is surprisingly higher than the People's score, who come in at a 31% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Oh, no. Well, let's see if Metacritic critics have anything to say about that. They don't, because there's no score for it.
Don't worry, James, because the Metacritic people will carry their weight. But actually, no, there is no score for that on Metacritic either.
Nick, not sure what that says when nobody from Metacritic shows up to the showing, but it can't be good. And now, for our no-budget flick, Horny Blind Chick, the quality is hazy, and is Johnny going crazy? Doom is sounding muffled in a stretchy arm scuffle, while Sue goes invisible and these goons are predictable. Score. Brought to you by a company trying to retain character rights. From IMDb, a 3.8. Oh my gosh.
That's a Fantastic 2, my friend. Goodness.
4 Fantastic Four rhymes there with that predictable score of a 3.8. Nick, amongst these reviews, can you tell me what was the funniest review you found on them internets?
The funniest review that I found on Rotten Tomatoes from the viewers here was given a 3.5 stars. Now, this is just so you know, just after the Josh Trank movie came out, and actually there's a lot of reviews that came just after Josh Trank's Fantastic Four came out in 2015. They were, and this review is, this is still the best and most faithful film adaptation of Marvel's First Family. That statement is utterly depressing.
Is the statement utterly depressing part of his review, or is that your take?
That's
on that?
part of the review. The reviewer is not happy with the state of the franchise.
A little bit of self-loathing there. Yep. Hence the
Just a tad.
Fox is selling everything to Disney. All right. A lot of threes there. A lot of threes.
Surprising amount of threes.
All right. Well, that's what the other guys are saying. We've heard the funniest review. Now it's time to get into what we think about this movie. Nick, you're going to go first by hitting the audience, hitting me with your laughable log line, your popcorn points, and your final thoughts on this movie. Go ahead when ready.
I would love to. James, my laughable log line is, in brackets, marketing budget dried up, insert log line here. James, my final thoughts for this movie are, I'm staying pretty true to where I was at the pre-pops. I gave it a 1. I'm giving it a 1.3. And that's strictly for the acting, strictly for the crew caring, but otherwise, my goodness, just a mess of a film. Doesn't help that the only way we can watch it is on ripped VHS. So quality, I don't even know what the quality is supposed to be, so I can't even judge it on that. But really, it's hard to blame the folks for trying to act and not being given the lighting, the direction, the editing, the music, the things that you don't realize make a movie. When they're missing, you realize what makes a movie. So movies like this really put what good production is into perspective, because they didn't do them any favors. But I will give the cast their due. If you're going to watch this movie, please, 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 please also watch the documentary. It gives a really good framing to what was going on. It makes me happy that the crew was having a good time working through this. I've worked for a startup before, and the best memories were not the paychecks or the final product. It was the time in the trenches and the late nights spent and the not having enough money but making do with what you have to. And that is what makes it fun. So from that perspective, I have a little bit of love in my heart for the crew of this movie, but doomed, no pun intended, from the start. And I think 1.3 was probably the highest they could even get to, and they got to that. So you should take your 1.3 and be happy with it.
Be happy with it. I guess they might be, but you'll have to ask the people that made this movie if they're actually happy. I think they have a bonding experience over it. My laughable log line for this movie is: one scientist, a football player, and 2 children go into space and get hit by a comet, and then some crazy college rival guy wants to suck that comet out of them until they use their greatest defects to overpower the bad guy. And I don't know, we ran out of money to finish this log line. I can't go on. I said I don't know, but it ain't good. That's technically still true here. But Nick, I'm going to hit this with a 2.4. I'm going to hit it with 2.4. It just feels right. The Fantastic Four deserve some sort of 4 number. It's not as bad as the ones. And when we get into that sub ones, for me personally, anything below a 4 is nothing to write home about. It's not a good movie. It really comes down to my hatred of the intentions of this movie. Now, the intentions from the top production company are horrible, but like you said, with that documentary, it shed a lot of light, gave us a lot of context, and kind of gives you a little bit of sympathy for the folks that went out and made this movie, because they honestly thought they were going to make something special, and they were going to make something that was going to advance their careers. And at the end of the day, they got shafted, and all of their efforts, blood, sweat, and tears were for naught, until it came out in this bootleg way where everybody on the internet saw it and comic book fans saw it. And they even mentioned this in the documentary. It probably did better in its run to release, quote unquote, than it would have done if it got an actual theatrical release. If it got an actual theatrical release, people would have said, it's a crappy movie. But just the lore and the backstory behind this movie kind of elevates it into stuff of legend. But unfortunately, still not that good. So the 2.4 is really good come from effort. That's like the Warriors in 2019. when they were just like, they had like 9 wins. And if they went out there and fought their hardest and gave an A for effort, but they still lost for 60 games, that's what we're dealing with here. So for the budget, the resources they had, I think the cast and crew gave a hell of an effort, but that lack in the budget and those resources is so evident. And those superimposed shots, even like the establishing shots of the Baxter Building, it looks flat as hell for whatever animated establishing shots they had. The CGI visual effects are obviously a hurdle in this movie. There's a lot of weird editing choices, and they play the same score all the time, that Jurassic Park sounding score. Poetic Justice did this. Mac and Me did this. They thought, oh, we have a great score. So whenever we want to have something meaningful happen and we want the audience to know it's meaningful, we'll play the same score all the time. I said, okay, we're playing the same music score every 5 minutes. We're kind of tanking the film review score for me. Lighting is a problem. It's hard to tell who's who in some scenes. And there's just again, the performances were fine, good. Would have been better if they were highlighted with a higher production quality. But I do think there still was a lot of play performances, especially by the goons and the mole men characters, and that storyline totally lost on me. I don't know what's going on there, but I will say this: practical effects were honestly a really good effort, but I don't think this movie surges anywhere past a 2.5, less than a quarter of the way to a perfect movie. And that's just where it needs to rest on the Just Play It podcast.
It's just where it is.
It's where it is. It's what it is. It's what it's doing. What's the dog doing? We don't know. And this dog is, I don't even have a pun for this. I don't have a joke for this. It's just, it was a movie that never was supposed to be released, never supposed to be seen by us. But guess what? We went out and we saw it. And that is the Fantastic Four from 1994.
We just played it, baby.
It's clobbering time, or maybe it's slobbering time for this one. Who knows? We want to thank you guys for watching. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to follow us. We are at Just Play It Podcast on Instagram and YouTube. We are at Just Play It Pod on X. And you're going to want to join us next time, because we're going to be getting on some lethal territory here, Nick.
Yeah, it's going to be on some very fatal footing.
Fatal footing, lethal land. Who knows? You won't know until you're there. So be there or be square. We are heading gone. And remember, if you want to retain some character rights, don't tell anybody you're doing it, and just put out a POS.
I thought to myself, how is Johnny going to defeat a laser?
It was like a blooming onion of diamonds.